There are a few moments in life where time just stops. And for me, one of those moments was when my 13-year-old daughter called me, her voice shaking, soft, like she was trying not to cry, and said, "Dad." She slapped me. I was in the middle of a meeting, 10 floors up in a downtown office in San Jose, half a dozen screens flashing earnings reports and market trends in my face. But in that moment, none of it mattered. I stood up, walked out of the room, and didn't say a word to anyone. Because when your child calls you crying from an airplane and says a grown woman laid hands on her, something primal wakes up in you. Doesn't matter who you are, how much money you make, how calm you normally are, you go full lion mode. And that's exactly what I did. Now, let me back up a little. My daughter, her name's Avash, one of those kids that strangers always compliment. So polite, so mature for her age. She's got this quiet strength about her. Doesn't say much, but when she does, you listen. She'd just finished this coding summer camp at Stanford, top of her class, won a scholarship, built her own game engine from scratch. So I wanted to surprise her with something special, a first-class flight to New York to see her aunt, all by herself for the first time. I thought it'd be empowering, a little taste of independence before high school started. We booked it through this premium airline, Palmetto Air, that supposedly prides itself on elite service and luxury. Big leather seats, onboard chefs, champagne for the grown-ups. You get the idea. I even called ahead, let them know a minor would be traveling solo in first class, asked them to keep an eye out, maybe a sign of friendly face. They assured me everything would be handled. But what they didn't say was that the person assigned to her cabin would be Sandra. Sandra, 40-something flight attendant with a sharp bob and sharper tongue, the kind of woman who carries her authority like it's a weapon. According to Ava, Sandra was already watching her funny the second she stepped onto the plane. Gave her a once-over and said, "Are you sure you're in the right seat, sweetie?" Not in a kind, helpful way. In that passive-aggressive, you don't belong here kind of tone. Ava smiled because she always tries to stay kind and said, "Yes, ma'am. 2A. Handed over the boarding pass. Sandra looked it up and down like it was counterfeit and said, "HM. Must be some kind of upgrade mistake." Right there, Ava felt it. That heat in your chest when you know someone's made up their mind about you before you even open your mouth. She took her seat, tried to ignore the stares, the cold glances. She called me before takeoff, said something felt off. I told her not to worry, to stay calm, and if anything happened, to call me right away. I should have listened harder. According to the passengers sitting nearby, some of whom later contacted me directly, Sandra didn't stop. First, she ignored Ava when she politely asked for water. Then, she told her to keep her bag out of sight, even though everyone else had theirs tucked in view. Then came the food service, when she gave everyone else their meals and skipped Ava entirely. Now here's where it all exploded. Apparently, a guy in one white dude in his 40s asked Ava, "Hey, are you okay?" and tried to give her one of his extra dinner rolls. Ava thanked him and accepted it. And that's what set Sandra off. She stormed over and said, "Absolutely not. We don't allow handouts between passengers," and yanked the tray away. Ava tried to explain, said she hadn't been served anything, but Sandra wouldn't hear it. She leaned down and said something under her breath, something like, "You people always act entitled, even when you shouldn't be here." And Ava, for the first time, said back quiet but firm, "That's not okay." And Sandra slapped her, open palm, across the face, in front of a dozen passengers. The cabin went silent. One woman gasped. A man shouted, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Another passenger started recording immediately. But Sandra? She didn't even look guilty. She told Ava, "You're being unruly. I'm going to have to report this." And that's when Ava called me, told me everything. And like I said, I walked out of my meeting, got in my car, and called my legal counsel before I even started the engine. Within the hour, I'd booked a private jet to JFK, called my PR strategist, called my board, canceled everything. I wasn't just going to show up angry, I was going to show up with a plan. And I wasn't going alone. By the time I landed, footage from the flight had already made it to social media. I'd posted a simple tweet that said, "No child deserves to be assaulted in first class for flying while black. This ends now." The internet lit up. Hashtag #StandWithAva started trending. DMs poured in from journalists, activists, even other families who'd had similar experiences with Palmetto Air. We had witnesses. We had proof. And we had leverage. Turns out, Palmetto Air's parent company relied heavily on contracts from 3 of my tech firms for cross-country logistics, executive travel, and even commercial drone work. And guess who held the voting majority on those contracts? Me. So I scheduled a meeting with their executive board. Not a request. A demand. I walked into that boardroom wearing a gray suit and fire in my veins. Across the table sat the CEO, Randall Pierce, slick hair, nervous smile. He stood up, tried to shake my hand. I didn't take it. "I'm here to talk about Sandra," I said. He blinked. "We're conducting an internal review of the situation." "No," I cut him off. "You're not. You're protecting her, just like you've protected others. And that stops today." He started stammering something about protocol, about process, until I pulled out a manila folder. Inside were testimonies from 6 passengers, screenshots of their emails, 3 separate videos including one where you could hear the slap. And the worst part? Sandra had 2 prior complaints for verbal abuse, both buried. I looked him in the eye and said, "You want to keep your airline contracts with us? Fire her entire crew. Publicly. Apologize. Or we pull everything. And we go to the press. Your call." There was a long silence. And then Randall looked at his legal advisor, then back at me, nodded. Sandra was terminated the next day. So were the 2 other attendants who'd stood by and watched in silence. The airline released a full apology, paid for Ava's therapy, and launched a new bias training program, but I wasn't done. I made sure Ava got a platform to speak. CNN, NPR, a handful of youth panels. And I'll never forget watching her take the mic, chin up, voice steady, and say, "I didn't want to make this a big deal. But being treated with respect shouldn't have to be a big deal." That line went viral. And maybe, just maybe, it started something. So now I want to ask you, the one listening. If it were your kid, if it were your family, would you have done the same? Drop a 1 in the comments if you think what I did was justice. Drop a 2 if you think I went too far. But more than that, tell me your story. Because this isn't just about Ava. It's about all of us. And next time someone tells you to stay quiet, to keep the peace, remember, peace built on silence is just injustice waiting to happen.